It makes logical sense. Put yourself first. Put yourself first. Welcome back to your Joyage. I'm Cade, your guide. I'll be replacing the little voice inside your head for now, giving you a break from the constant internal monologue that is the human mind. I want to say thank you for listening or viewing whatever platform you're on. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like in this video so other people can join the voyage. I want to talk about today visualization. I want to talk about knowing your mind, and I just want to talk about the mind in general, your mind's ability to adapt. And I want to start with the most fresh thing on my mind, which is the last vlog I just posted on my Cade Bergman channel. If you're not following that, you should, because I post incredible videos there. They're really, really good, I promise. And it was me converting my Prius into like a mobile home, because at some point I'm going to be in a van life, and I want to get accustomed to the idea of living in a car. And I'll be in my car a lot because I'll be driving to and from work. Like every day this summer I'll be serving, and it's a long drive. So I want to get more accustomed, and, every week, every month, I'm going to build upon that. I'm going to start buying certain things that, identify with van life, and, just living in a car, because I want to experience that before I go in and buy a van. It would be dumb to just buy a van and not know if I actually want to be in that lifestyle. So, yeah, I want to talk about visualization. So for the last few weeks, I've been thinking about doing what I did in my last video, which was just making my car into like a mobile home, basically. And I visualized it, like I thought about it all the time, and I was following a couple van life accounts and doing a little bit of research, basically just doing some active manifesting, but very low key. But here's the thing, when you do that every day, and I have a journal and I write things down just like throughout the day about Joyage, about my future and stuff, when you're thinking about that, and when your mind is revolving around that picture, around that visualization that you put in your head every day, multiple times a day, it becomes a lot easier to think about that idea. And a lot of things just start happening in that path just because you're thinking about it. And with the visualization thing, I remember picturing, and I can't remember it anymore because I went and did it now, but I would picture in my head, before I touched the car, me being in the car, in the back seat, in the trunk, and looking out over, like, in the woods or like over a lake or wherever I was, but being able to see like a beautiful landscape from my car was something I pictured in my head many times. And once I finished like cleaning the car and all that and putting the seats down, I sat in the back of my car, and without even meaning to, I literally looked out the back of my car and saw that, but like first person point of view this time, not a third person point of view where I'm like imagining it. Like I was there in the back seat looking out, and you can see it in my video. I talk about it in the vlog. I'll link in the description. But it was incredible, and it was really, really powerful for me. It's real now. It's a lot more real, at least. And that was like step 2. I don't know how many steps there are, but there's many more. And I'm starting to really physically see what happens when you start building brick by brick something that you're extremely excited and passionate about. Because if I went tomorrow and bought a van, and just started van life tomorrow, it would be great. I'd have a great time, but it wouldn't be anywhere near as important and as big to me if I didn't do the steps that I plan on doing for the next few months before I actually go and do that. And that's because I'm building this up, and it's like the idea of denying instant gratification. I could go buy that van right now, have the funds. It would be dumb because I have those funds in investments, and it makes better sense to me to hold on to those investments and not blow all that money on a van when I don't need to right now. And so there's certain things I think about now that are going to help me in the future. And with this thing I was talking about, which is visualization and, journaling and that type of deal, I do it in my own way. I need to do my own way of everything, and I can't stick with social norms or like typical social constructs that don't make sense. It's really difficult for me to accept those, and not like dumb shit. Like, yeah, I'm going to drive on the right side of the road just because. And I'm not going to question that. But there's certain things, like if I'm at work and we have, I'm a server. So like if the buckets that we use for our crab legs are not by the front door, it doesn't make any sense in my head why we wouldn't have that there. I'm like, look, why would we not do that? It makes better sense. So I'm just going to put all the buckets there. And like that type of thing, I can't not do that. And so that also leaks into other facets of my life because I can't journal. I can't do it. I force myself in the mornings, a lot of mornings, to do it, or at night. But the way I journal is I don't write it down. I don't need to write it down. It doesn't help me that much more to write it versus typing on my phone. And I'll just pick up my iPhone on the Notes app and I'll just write my thoughts throughout the day randomly. I won't write them in like a certain order or in a beautiful format. I just write things down, instant thoughts, 2 sentences randomly, 3 paragraphs. Like it doesn't matter. I just write it when I feel like it, and that's how I get my thoughts out. And I never really reread them. For some reason, when I reread them, I have difficulty because I'm like, I didn't write this so I could reread it later. I wrote it so I could just get it out of my head onto paper or onto my phone so I could see it because I'm a visual learner. The traditional way is meant for the broad audience who doesn't want to dip their toes into the water that much. They just kind of want to taste it. And I want to do that, but like 50% more. So I want to dip my feet in or my toes in, but I want to dip like half my body in. Not all the way, but I want to know what it's like. And for that to happen, you can't go the traditional route for most people because it's not built for that. The traditional way was so you could get a tiny, tiny taste of it. And that's not what I'm really after. And so I'm not able to do the things that everyone else is able to do. I'm not able to just hunker down, get a 9-to-5, put my money into a retirement, into a savings account. I will not do it. I can't do it. I've never done that stuff. I can't. And that's something that I identified with very, very early on in my life. And certain things like psychedelics have definitely amplified that a good bit. And when I took this 4 Tendencies course and I found a community of people who thought like me, and I didn't feel as though I was the ugly duckling anymore. And for anyone who feels like they're the odd one out or doesn't quite understand why they do things, or maybe they hate the way they react to things or think about the world, when you're learning about yourself, it's much easier to love yourself when you understand yourself. Does that make sense? Because if you don't understand why you do something, all you know is you hate it, then that's all that's going to happen. You're just going to hate yourself and you don't know why, you just do. But if you know why, now maybe you can take some steps to change it. Or maybe now that you know why, you don't hate yourself for it anymore. Maybe it's not so bad because now you understand why. And I think that's really, really important because there's a lot of people out there who are just going through life reacting to everything. They don't take a second to observe. They don't take a second to think about what they're saying or doing. They just do things. And for me, I know not everyone watching this podcast, I know you're not all a rebel, quotes, rebel. You don't think like I do. But do you really want to be just pushed around by life? I mean, do you really want to be pushed around by life? Or do you want to navigate life and hit some of your goals that you want to achieve? The people that achieve these great goals, for the most part, are not Elon Musk. They're not all these crazy, rich, high IQ people. They're just normal people. They just happen to go after the thing when other people didn't. And for most successful people, when you ask them, hey, what did you do? They go, I don't know. I just started doing stuff. And it just kind of snowballed. And that's the answer you almost always get. There's never a set way. Now, I will say there is a blueprint for success, and I'm following it right now. And all it is once you find something that you kind of like, just go in that direction and just go do. Just do stuff. And don't think about the rest. And then at some point, you will find something with a more direct path to what you want. And you go, okay, I choose this. And at that point, you need to start making small steps toward that, just the way you did to get to that point. You do the same stuff, and eventually you're going to look back 10 years later, and you're going to say, wow, look at the world I just created for myself. That's my goal. I'm going to make it happen. It is definitely not the traditional route. It is not the easy route, and I don't want it to be, because the easier it is, have you ever gotten something for free? Has anyone ever given something to you, and as soon as you got it, a week later, you like, I don't really care about this because it was free. You literally can't value it more unless you like worked for it a little bit. Like if your best friend of 10 years gives you something, that's going to mean more because you have 10 years of friendship that you worked on, and it means something. But if someone just hands you something on the side of the street, you don't care about that item. So my point there is that when you give in to instant gratification all your life and you just chase the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, it will never fill you up. It will never satisfy you. It never will. The only way you can be satisfied is if you're actively working on something toward a goal, but you also enjoy the days in between that you're putting in. Like, you have to enjoy the work that you're putting in a little bit. Or if you don't enjoy the work, the actual labor that you're putting in, at least in your head, you need to have a clear picture of why you're doing these things, why they're necessary. Because if they're not, why the fuck are you doing it? If the only reason you're in this job is so you can save up $20,000 so you can go, put a down payment on the house or do whatever you want to do, then remember that. Look, okay, no matter what happens in the day, all I need to know is I need to make 20K. Once I get 20K, I'm done, I'm out. So if you can keep that mentality, it's going to be a lot easier to get through your workday than if you're just like, man, I hate this job, I don't want to do this, I can't even remember why I'm here anymore. But if you know, and that's where I'm talking about the awareness is so important, because if you know yourself and you know your mind, you spent a lot of time researching and understanding and putting yourself in different circumstances to kind of test yourself and see how you do in situations, and you find what's important to you. You find who you really are when you're put in these situations. And I'm not talking crazy stuff. I'm not talking about, like, what is it, like Boy Scouts drop their kid off in like the middle of the woods and make them find their way back. You don't need to do something extremely weird like that. Just putting yourself in just a little bit uncomfortable situations. You just learn about yourself. Maybe you go to a bar by yourself one day. It's just something random. It doesn't have to be towards your goals, but do things that throw your routine out of sort a little bit. Like the other day, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I almost always have this smoothie bowl that I make at home with like granola, and it's incredible. But I was like, man, I've been doing the exact same thing. Like, let me change it up just for fun. And I made like a bagel with cream cheese instead. And it was so weird. But I remember after I did that, I like went and researched something on my computer that I had never heard about. And I went into this like rabbit hole about it. And I like learned something new that I never would have done if I hadn't, done something just a fraction different than my typical routine. And those little things like compound. When you get out of your routine, if you're stuck in this routine and you hate every second of it, change one little thing. One little thing. Instead of waking up and grabbing your phone immediately after, wake up, go brush your teeth, wash your face, then come back and get on your phone. That tiny 1% tweak is going to build on itself, and eventually you're going to look back 3 weeks later and you're going to say, wow, my life is a lot different as soon as I did that one little thing. Because it snowballs. It always snowballs. It can't not snowball. And that's the way life works that I've found. And if you don't believe me, do it yourself. If you're a rebel, then you would be amazed at how much your life can change by changing one little thing one day. Because now, for the rest of your life, it's a little bit different. 1% different. And I think you'll be surprised at how much you can impact your life by making one small change. A small change that is insignificant on its own, but in the grand scheme of things, when you build on brick on brick on brick, you're building something, you're getting to know yourself. And in the end, this is a super deep philosophical concept. Like, we are all stuck with ourselves. In the end, even if you're married, if you have kids, it is you that you're talking to in your head all day. Like, it's just you. And no matter how important these other people are in your life, they will not even remotely come close to how you value yourself. And even if you hate yourself, like, the mind has a way of self-protection to protect itself emotionally, and that's things like defense mechanisms. Like, our body is so good at surviving. It is a fucking master at surviving. It will do whatever it can to convince you, to lie to you, to do whatever it needs to preserve its identity. And I don't want to get too deep into the idea of like identity and ego and all that stuff, because that's not what I want to talk about today. I will probably talk about that in the future, to be honest. And I didn't forget, we have a quote of the day from Grandmother Willow, the talking tree in Pocahontas. She said, "Sometimes the right path is not the easiest." And I feel like that's perfect for this podcast because in some ways, the easiest path might be the right path. Like the right path is the easiest path sometimes. It's just starting. It's always bigger in your head. And I've said it 100 times and I'll continue to say it's always bigger in your head. It's always scary in your head. It's always built up in your head. And that's good and bad. Like even the problem with that is sometimes you'll be so excited about something and it doesn't live up to your expectations, and now you're upset that it didn't live up to the hype in your head. And that sucks because, for reasons that are obvious, it sucks. But then also, when you want to try something new or you want to go somewhere new, it's so scary in your head until you show up and you realize that shit was not scary at all. Or maybe it was, but now at least you know, and you're much more confident in yourself to do it again. But I want to follow up to her statement and say sometimes the right path is the easiest. Sometimes it's so easy that you think it's not the right path. That you're like, why would all these people go on this path when clearly the best answer is this way? So there was a study I read about one time that it was a social experiment. They had all these actors. There's 29 actors and then one person who didn't know. And the 29 actors were told to basically answer the question that was a very simple question wrong, and see if the person who didn't know would also follow their wrong answer, even though they knew it was wrong. It was something like 2 lines, and one was like much shorter, and it said which one's like the shorter one, and people picked the long one on purpose. And they found that all these people would choose the wrong answer knowing it was wrong because other people thought it was right. And what they found was that the one person almost always went with the wrong answer just because everyone else went with it. And that sucks. Like, that shows that, like, you're not thinking for yourself. And that's, like, the main thing I preach on this channel is, like, do you. Like, do you. And I don't care if you're a rebel like me who thinks like me, or if you're not. If you're an obliger or you're a questioner or whoever you are, think for yourself. Do not, like, take everything with a grain of salt. Do your own research on stuff. And when I say do your own research, that doesn't mean, like, go on, like PubMed or like read all these like PhD articles. I'm talking about do it yourself and figure out for yourself what is the best way to do something, or is this the right way to think about it? And like put in some fucking effort. Put in some effort. I have no room to accept people who say like I don't have time to research. I'm like, look, you're talking about you. There is no greater investment than your brain, your mind, you. You are the greatest investment you'll ever make. And if you can't spend a couple hours each day or each week learning about you, I got nothing to say. I'm like, dude, it is you. You take precedent over everybody and everything in your life, because if you're not taken care of, you can't take care of anybody else or anything in your life. You need to take care of yourself first. Whatever that is for you. For me, I have to constantly be doing things that get my mind going and thinking about new things. I have to do those things. If I'm not, I feel stagnant. I feel like shit. And I know that about me. And so when I go and I'm like watching documentaries or learning about something and someone goes, hey, why can't we just watch The Office? I'm like, dude, because I can't just sit and watch The Office. Like, I can sometimes, but for the most part, I'm not going to watch The Office. I need to watch something that gets the gears going, gets me to think, how can I use this in my own life to help me out in some way, shape, or form? Maybe there's like a one little thing in this show that gets me to think about a certain scenario in my life a little bit differently, and that for me is so exciting and so like riveting, and I need that, and I know that I need that. So I'm not gonna bash myself because I think differently than other people, or that I watch weird shows that other people don't watch. I'm like, look, I don't care. I need that for my own mental health. Right? And so there's no room for me to care about other people. And that's why I'm so glad I'm out of high school, done with college, because now I just don't have to be around the people who would have judged me. I'm on my own, and that's kind of the way I like it. And that's kind of why I want to do this van life, because I don't think I want to share my van with anyone. Even if I end up starting to date someone, I don't think I want to share that van, because I really, really value my time alone. And when I'm living with other people, especially if they're like talking to me too much, I don't know, I just get like, I get this weird anxiety that I didn't like do enough to impress them or something, and that's just, it like bothers me that I think that way sometimes. And it's because I don't want to have to live up to someone else's expectations. Like if someone else thinks I'm a certain way, or I have certain values, I don't want to have to explain to them every time I change my mind about something, or every time I have a bad day and I didn't make active steps toward it. I don't want to have to explain that I did nothing or that I felt bad all day. I just want to not talk about it because I don't need to talk about it. I know how I feel inside, and I don't have any energy or desire to talk about it. And so I really, really enjoy like living alone. And this is a weird thought that just popped in my head. When I get married, if I ever get married, I don't know how I feel about living in the same house as them. Or maybe if I did, I would need a house, or like certain parts of the house that are dedicated to your own place. Like you need to at least have like a room that you can retreat to be your own most authentic self and have nobody else in that room, or nobody else needs to know what goes on there, because it's your time for your own self. And I feel like I would need a whole place, a whole space for that. I don't think that's everybody, but I need that. And I think with awareness, when you're doing things that increase your awareness, when you're doing things like meditating or journaling or going somewhere by yourself or taking yourself on adventures or treating yourself a little bit, those are things that help your brain and your mind and your soul grow positively. And those are things that need to be higher on people's priority lists. And I'll explain to you why. For the people who are rebels like me, if I were to hear that, I would just say fuck off. But I'm going to explain why. And it's because, and I already said it, like, you have to put yourself first. I mean, that only makes logical sense, right? You can't do anything if you're not taken care of. It's not possible. If I'm constantly overwhelmed by depression, how the fuck am I going to take care of a kid? How the fuck am I going to take care of my job or these clients or these customers that are coming in if I'm so depressed that I can't get over anything? It makes logical sense. Put yourself first. Put yourself first. The beginning of this week started off really, really crappy. I couldn't get going. I couldn't get the ball rolling, and it felt like everything was uphill. Mainly the thing was, it was a mental block that I couldn't seem to overcome. And I called it in one of the first vlogs. I think it was called, so it was something to do with reading The Power of Now. Oh, it was Toxic Spirituality was the title of the video. So go look it up if you haven't seen it. I basically talked about chronic boredom, which I coined. And basically that means anything I did, anything I thought of doing, had no interest. It was like a 5% interest, and then 95% like, why would you waste your time doing that? You know, you could be doing all these other things, except none of those things like felt better either. You know, it was like you could go read, you could go to the gym, you could record a podcast, make a video, all of which seemed not interesting to me in the slightest. And it was frustrating because those are the things I wanted to do and needed to do, and I couldn't decide on which one to do first or how to do which one. For example, I wanted to go read at one of my favorite spots to read, but in my head I was like, well, it takes like 20 minutes to drive there, I'm going to drive there, then I walk over to my spot, then I got to read, for an hour, but then I want to have time to go to the gym because then I'll run into rush hour for traffic and like this and that and the other, and it led to a non-decision, just me sitting in my room playing video games and doing nothing and feeling even more like crap and falling deeper into that hole of just anxiety and depression. If you deal with these mental illnesses, you understand what I'm talking about. If not, I don't know if I should call you lucky or not, because in a way I'm thankful for it, because it's helping me navigating the mental illness, and getting around it is teaching me a lot about myself. So in a way, in the moment I can't appreciate it, but afterwards, when I overcome the barriers that is, anxiety, I feel a lot better about myself. I feel like I learned something about myself, and that's something that if you don't deal with those things, you can't really relate to. And I think with this platform and the people who listen to my podcast are people who struggle with this, because it's really relatable. It's hard to take meaning and remember what exactly we're doing on this floating rock that we call Earth. We're all just doing stuff, and no one really knows why we're doing any of it. Even the people who are the most established in their fields or think they have it all figured out, none of us really know, and we're never gonna know unless some all-powerful being just shows up and tells us. But for the most part, we all just have to come up with reasons to value things. And I talked about it in one of my past videos about, I think I called it the Monopoly paradox or something, the game of Monopoly, in the sense that when you play Monopoly, instantly after 5 minutes, you want to win all of a sudden. And 5 minutes before you started the game, you didn't have a care in the world because Monopoly wasn't on your mind. But now that you're playing this game, and it can be any game, it could be FIFA, it could be NBA or whatever the game is, suddenly you feel the need to win. And that's because we as humans get to decide, because we are aware, because we have consciousness, to assign value to whatever we choose to assign it to. And the problem, it's a double-edged sword, because the problem with that is we start to second-guess ourselves. We start to say, well, why do I value this? Is it worth it to value this? And that was the problem I kept running into, is I couldn't assign it enough value to qualify me to do it, I guess. And that led to a lot of problems, but in the end, I ended up making a video, and that's kind of how I fixed it, because then I remembered that's what I do. I make videos. I love making videos. I love editing. And when I don't have anything to edit, I feel kind of lost. And in the video after that, it was a completely different vibe, because the first video was very sad, kind of angry, frustrated mainly, and you could tell it was the vibe of the whole video. It ended up being a great video, but you could tell that was the vibe. And the second video I came out with the Prius, cleaning the Prius, getting it ready for a mobile home, that video was a totally different me, because I wasn't overcome with anxiety. I knew what I wanted to do in the video. I had a plan, and I executed. And the reason I prefaced with basically an entire narrative of what just happened this week is because I want to talk about our mind's ability to adapt in the snap of a finger. In that first video where I was so frustrated at the world and couldn't get out of this rut, I remember, my friend texted me and says, hey, we have an alcohol meeting, don't forget to come. And so I'm feeling like crap still, not really feeling that great. And as soon as I stepped into the meeting with all my friends, all my coworkers that I love dearly, instantly I forgot about all my issues, completely forgot about the horrible morning I had, and I was fully present. I engaged with my friends, I talked, we tried all the alcohol, it was a great time. And as soon as I got back in my car and I was alone again, my thoughts started to come back, and I was like, wow, that's incredible that I just shifted to like a different me. And it's so weird because my mind just grabbed the first perspective of me and just pushed it down and grabbed another one, put it there. And I didn't understand how the mind is able to do that. And it's so interesting, and I've been doing so much research and like watching all these videos and like listening to all these talks and reading these articles and stuff about how we don't know what it is, like the mind or the consciousness or the soul, whatever, has multiple faces, and certain ones you show to certain people, like your professor, for example. If you're in college, you have a professor, there's a side of you, there's a side of the professor that you see in class, and there's another side of that professor that he only shows his wife, and there's a certain that he only shows his gym buddies, and like we all have different faces, kind of. It's all the same person, but it's all different parts of our personality. And it's crazy to me that we have that, and the weirdest thing is that every single person on earth has that, but we're not all aware of it. And I can't tell if it's a good thing or a bad thing, or if we even should label it. I'm leaning toward being aware of it as being a better, more efficient way to live, because if you're aware that your brain switches and you change into different like facets of your personality depending on the situation you're in, it allows you to check yourself when certain things happen. For example, if you're at work and some customer comes up and starts screaming in your face, and you're aware that you could overreact and start screaming in his face back. Or you could step back for a moment and observe from a third-party, non-biased point of view, what the fuck is happening right now? How is the best, most efficient way to scale the situation down and move on with my day? How can I do that without overreacting, getting too emotionally attached to the situation. And that comes with awareness. And I think that knowing your mind, learning about your mind, it's all part of the same process. And to go through life and not be conscious of this is to react. That means you're literally reacting to everything. You're not stepping back and interacting with the situation and making decisions to get through that situation. You're simply just reacting. And there's no way to grow if you're just reacting, because you're not taking any past experiences to help you on this new situation. You're literally just first thing, boom, that's the answer we're going with. And that can work, but what I'm describing is the classic sheep. The person that just you associate with the masses. The people that all are running around with their heads cut off because they don't know what to do. They're not willing to learn about it. They're not aware. I mean, it's the people who invested all their money into GameStop without knowing what the fuck they were doing, and knowing that you don't invest all your money into GameStop, right? You do a little bit of research. You put in money that you don't need to have. And if you're aware and you're kind of thinking a little bit, you wouldn't make that mistake. But if you're not aware and you're simply reacting, and you go, oh my God, there's news about GameStop, everyone's making money, let me throw all my life savings in there, and then it goes down because you're an idiot. And knowing your mind and being able to navigate through your mind a little bit, and maybe even your soul. It's hard to distinguish which is which because we don't really know. But for me, knowing my mind has really helped me accept myself a little bit better and get through situations feeling better about myself and being more confident, self-confident in my ability to take care of situations and take comfort in knowing that I'll be all right. In 99% of situations, I'll be able to get out of it because I have just a little bit of like street smarts, I guess you could call it. And me knowing that there's this course that everyone should take, I think it's called the 4 Tendencies. There's the obliger, there's the questioner, there's the rebel, and then there's one more. But basically, you take this test and ask you all these questions, and you figure out like what type of person are you, what kind of habits do you have. And I was able to find that I'm like 99% rebel, in the sense that it's very difficult for me to accept the status or like accept the norm unless it makes like logical sense to me. I'm like, look, if we all do this system because it's the most efficient way and there's no reason to change it, then I'm good. I'm like, all right, cool. But I have to go through it and make sure it is. For like almost everything I do, I'm like, okay, is this the best way to do it? If not, I really have a hard time doing it, because I'm like, why don't we just do it this way, because it makes better sense and it's going to work better. And in my head, I can't compute why you wouldn't want to do that. And it's really difficult for me to be an employee when I have that mindset, and it's really difficult for me I'm very stubborn in that mindset. So if there's a better way, I'm not going to like just not do it. I'm going to have to tell someone. I have to somehow get it through whoever's in charge and be like, look, you need to think about this thing because it works better, or there's a different way to think about something. And that will help me. I know it will help me, because at some point I will not be an employee. And if I ever become an employer, I know I have that different way of thinking, because in the 4 Tendencies course that I took, rebel is the most different from the other 3, and there's less rebels than non-rebels, basically. And I've noticed this because I'm always the odd link in the group. I'm always the one that doesn't fully fit in, and it's because of these rebel tendencies I have and my specific way of thinking and doing things and my perspective on the world. And after my first psychedelic experience and seeing the psychedelic community and what they're talking about, it confirmed those beliefs in me that I wasn't the only person thinking these things. And the same when I enrolled in the 4 Tendencies course and found all these people who had very, very like-minded ways of thinking. And hearing someone talk about something that I've never heard verbalized in my life allowed me to kind of identify with it and be so happy that, like, in a way I found a home internally, like my brain, my mind found a home and felt people like me in a real community. And that was so, so fulfilling. So if you haven't heard this 4 Tendencies, look it up. Just type in 4 Tendencies quiz and learn about yourself. It was incredible. Just reading stuff and learning about people who think like this and being like, wow, I think exactly like that. That makes so much sense why I do these things and why I react in these ways and why I think about the world in this way, in this manner. And it helped me a lot, especially with my anxiety. And here's my PSA for anyone struggling out there. You know I do these after every podcast because I think they're so important. And I make my podcasts for everybody else, but I do it for me first, mainly. This may sound weird, but I listen to my podcasts, and I love my podcast, which is super weird to say that out loud, but I only make content that I would want to see. I make the content that I can't find online. And I want you to know, if you're struggling right at this moment, that you are okay, that there are many days in your life, probably tens of thousands of days you're going to live in your life, and a week here, a month here, a year here of being in a sucky place, it's really not as big of a deal as you think it is. And in 2 weeks, in a month, in a year, whatever it is, you're going to be all right. You're going to get through this. I know it. If you're listening to this podcast, you're one step ahead of a lot of other people. And if you think this can help other people, please share this video. Like this video, subscribe, do whatever you can to help push this video out and this podcast out, because it helps me doing this podcast and listening to my own podcast, so I know it can help some other people out there. And lastly, if you're still listening to this podcast, thank you so much. I hope you have a great day, and I'll probably see you next week. Deuces.